We are in line one of gate one. This is our new gate that we've started with this morning. Thank you very much for joining me here as we explore the lines of the gate of self-expression, the creative. This line is called Creation is Independent of Will. This is the foundation of being creative, the whole foundation of being creative. It's about being independent of will. And this is the joke about creativity in a way. Creative or the creative is reactive because art is a reaction. It's not a creation. The uniqueness is how it is filtered, but it doesn't belong to the filterer. The first line always speaks for the nature of the hexagram. And here we have the relationship between the self and the ego. The first thing we hear is that creation is independent of will. Right away, we have a keynote that says, look, this is not about what your ego is doing. This is not about your ego claiming that it is a creative font. And the ego is just a motor, of course. Our unique direction, it has nothing to do with willpower. Only the collective is misguided enough to say, I'm going to do something nobody else has ever done. Because to do something that nobody else has ever done is a mutation, and it can only happen in its own timing, in the pulse, or the spaces between the pulses. We cannot create it. It is independent of will. In the exaltation, the moon exalted as a symbol of adaptation. Time is everything. Self-expression, which has its own special timing. Mutation follows its own laws. You have to wait for it. There's nothing you can do to make it happen. And this is a first line. It's not transpersonal, it's introspective. It doesn't know that there's an eighth gate on the other side that is ready to make a contribution. It doesn't know that it can make that contribution. There's just this deep impulse to express uniqueness. Time truly is everything. Ra said that this was one of his favorite themes. You're always bringing us back to this concept of perfect timing. We are the dancers in the dance. There is a perfect timing for us, and it comes through us being ourselves. If you have the first gate, how do you expect to have consistent creative expression? You're not the eighth gate. You don't even know there's an eighth gate there. Not from this position in the lower trigram. It's not going to be an easy process for you if you cannot accept that it's the hand of God or it's the muse that opens up that door. If you insist that I'm going to create it, I'm going to create it in this moment right now, then you're going to run into trouble. There's a potential there for pain and frustration and anger. And what you do end up producing could be absolute garbage. In the detriment, instability leads to distortion. Here, patience is a virtue and revolution a vice. Creative instability unless there is patience. There can be a lot of impatience in the gates of the quarter of mutation. This first line is the foundation of being creative. If you have to be the best, then you have to practice. You cannot be the best without practice, and you're not going to practice unless you're logical, because repetition is the format of the logical process. You get focused, you concentrate, you sit down, you do it again and again, over and over, all of your life, and that's how you achieve mastery. To be creative is not about practice. To be creative is a spontaneous release, and it happens in its own timing. Craft is something that you can learn, but creativity is something that is like the wind. It blows or it doesn't blow. It comes or it doesn't come. And nobody and nothing controls that. There can be so much arrogance in creativity. There was so much vanity. I painted that. I wrote that. Instead of that realization that it painted me, it wrote me, or it was painted through me, it was written through me, which is much more aligned with the truth. You can't be an example right away. So many individuals go through life trying to be like the collective until that moment of mutation. If you can be patient, it will come. You know, the moment you try to control it, the moment you try to drive it with willpower, then you become unstable. It is in those moments when the last thing that you want to do ever is create something. That's when you'll be driven to do it, because that's the mechanism. You know, you get pushed to the edge of the melancholy and the muse is riding along behind. And you learn in time. Patience is a great teacher. If you let the ego lead you, it will lead you to distortion. So the grounding is coming through the second gate in the line 1, which is called intuition. The nature of true direction is about beauty. The second line is the driver, and we're driving into the future along our evolutionary track. And the basis of our driver's map is beauty. It's individual beauty. You know, we don't all find the same things beautiful, and we don't have to. Our beauty is as unique as we are. But all we do have to do is surrender to the driver. There's nothing else to be done. To allow the driver to take us where it intuitively knows we need to go. The second gate is individuality again, as we know, just like the first gate. Surrendering to the vehicle can empower the creative self-expression of the first gate. It's a surrendering to the knowing. This is the knowing circuit. So we surrender to the knowing that life happens through us, not to us. So we have a channel. The sun is in a channel with Uranus, the 1-8. So this is a channel that is active through the whole of this sun's transit. It's an individual channel, of course. And so it carries all of the themes of individuality that we are getting to know so well. There can be a potential for great change here, that mutation. There's a need to express yourself creatively, whether that's your own direction, your own identity, your own expression. There's the possibility to become a role model. And as a projector channel, it's best to wait for the expression to be invited out. And this doesn't mean you can't do anything. You know, some people say, oh, I've just got to wait. I can't, you know, my expression, my self-expression is limited because I have to wait. It doesn't mean that necessarily. You know, it's a question of what you do with what you do, if you know what I mean. If you have the desire to write a book, write it. Write with it, and then sit with it and wait for it to be recognized. You know, perhaps what you don't do is leap into self-publication, but you wait then for that recognition to come in. So it doesn't have to be a very passive thing. You can be active in the waiting. You know, as a projector, I know this only too well. I do what I love to do, and I do it without yearning for recognition. It's not a kind of like, because that comes through. You can feel that. If somebody is doing something for an end result, you can feel it. And it puts people off. It puts a barrier there. And then you never get the recognition that you're after. And that's a really interesting to learn as a projector. You know, to do what you love to do without giving two fucks whether anybody actually recognizes you for it or invites you to do anything else on the back of it. So this is something that can be done with this 1-8. This is a channel that never wants to be told that it resembles someone else. A sure way to send a 1-8 into a depression is to say, God, you really remind me of my Aunt Mabel. especially if it's a young, good-looking boy. But because they want to be unique, every 1/8 just wants to be unique. You know, they don't take criticism terribly well either, because what they're expressing through this channel is their identity, and that is personal. So this is something to be aware of. If you have a 1/8 in your life, just be aware of the criticism that you might, yeah, you know what I mean. I will shut up now. Venus is moving into gate 11 at 1424. This is part of the gate 11 collective sensing circuit. So I was because it's in the sacral. It's not in the sacral. It's gate 11 is in the ajna. It's definitely not in the sacral. So it's in the collective sensing circuit, which is also the abstract circuit, and it's in the stream of sensing. This is the possibility of expressing the experiences that have been collected over time, that have been made sense of through the 6447. Now, ideas don't have to be based in fact or in logic. Ideas can be fluid, and we can have lots of ideas floating around at any one time. This is the mirror to gate 17, the gate of opinions, which is logical, and opinions need to be based in fact. And you don't, you know, it's best to have one opinion at a time, keep it nice and simple. But ideas, yeah, we can play around with ideas all day. The moon has actually been in gate 11 since 0114, and then it moves into gate 10 at 11:57. And remember, we're in GMT now. So gate 10, this is the G center, this is the behavior of the self, this is a role gate, and this is where we get our profile names from. So, you know, the martyr, the hermit, the heretic, and so on. These are the roles that we play in life. And we'll be coming to gate 10 in the middle of this quarter of mutation, so we'll explore that a little bit more when we get there. It's another individual gate, being in the centering circuit and also part of integration. So it's one of those gates that has, you know, has 3 different ways of meeting a harmonic. The moon brings us a channel here because Mercury is sitting in gate 34, which is in the sacral. And this is the channel of exploration. This is the design of following one's own convictions. And we get this channel through mutation. Both of these gates are in the quarter of mutation. So it's individual, of course. So we know that it isn't about fitting in. This is about marching to the beat of your own drum, following your own convictions, not anyone else's, and not expecting anyone else to follow your convictions either. You're in it for yourself. You may empower other people through that. And remember integration, when we had that whole conversation in gate 57, that it's all softened from self-empowerment into empowerment if the 3828 is around. If it's not around, then this is for the self. You know, this is my convictions for me, but out. The moon then moves into gate 58 at 2236. This is the gate of the joyous, and it brings us another channel, this time with the south node. So this is the 1858, the channel of judgment. It is a logical channel, and it seeks to correct, to work on what has been spoiled. It's a channel in the stream of taste. What you think needs correcting isn't necessarily what other people think needs correcting. So things to be aware of. And finally, the moon moves into another root gate, gate 38, at 9:10 tomorrow morning. And this is the fighter. This is an individual energy that can be stubborn, it can be deaf, and it doesn't want to know what you think it should be fighting for. It wants to find and fight its own battles and its own causes. You know, because this is individuality, we know there can be some melancholy, and we know that the energy moves in a pulse. You know what to fight for, you don't know what to fight for. The energy is there, the energy isn't there. Yeah, this is our first line of gate 1. Thank you very much for joining me, and I will see you for a second line day tomorrow. Until then, as always, love your own unique self-expression. Enjoy this transit as we have this channel in the 1/8, and yeah, go gently.